It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook. Hey, I get it. You've worked really hard to build up your business, and it's doing great. So great that you need help now. The most important thing for your business is to hire the right people to support it. So how can you find amazing candidates quickly? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. And with Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, Sponsored Jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. And it's one of the largest databases of job seekers, too, giving business owners access to a wide range of candidates. And one of the things I love most about Indeed is the job alerts feature. I get notified when new candidates apply. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/smartpassive. Just go to Indeed.com/smartpassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/smartpassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 64. Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host, who can now call himself a best-selling author, Pat Flynn.
While DIY website tools are everywhere, most fall short on design and performance. Hit publish. Framer ships your site worldwide in seconds. No code, no compromises. Framer is a powerful, user-friendly platform that delivers developer-level results without writing a single line of code. Make your designs move and convert with Framer. Framer brings your site to life with powerful animations, dynamic content handling, and a design-first approach that helps your site stand out. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. Browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something of your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, scroll and looping animations, and much more in seconds. And it's free to start. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting of generating starter layouts and can even translate your entire site to any language. On the back end, you'll get responsive breakpoints, built-in hosting, a flexible CMS, and privacy-friendly analytics. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at Framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's Framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. Running a business means legal questions are inevitable. Is this contract or agreement solid? What can I do if a client won't pay me? Am I set up properly for taxes? Well, rather than trying to navigate all of this on your own or searching endlessly online, imagine having a law firm on your side without the high hourly rates. That's exactly what Legal Shield's small business plans offer. With Legal Shield, entrepreneurs get access to real legal support, contract reviews, collection letters, guidance on business formation, and even help handling IRS audits. Members can book consultations, upload documents through the app, and work with a provider law firm that understands small business laws in your state. You also get proactive help on tax and trademark questions so you can stay ahead of legal risks. And if a client delays payment, Legal Shield can send professional collection letters to help you recover what you're owed, all for a fraction of what traditional attorneys charge. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Yup, that's right. You heard it right. I am so happy to share with you here on the podcast really quick that just recently I released my book Let Go on the Kindle platform, which opened it up to everyone who wasn't able to download it on their iPhones or iPads on the original Snippet app where I first released it. And after I launched it on Kindle on Amazon.com, in less than 24 hours, it shot up to the #1 best-selling small business and entrepreneurship book on Amazon.com. And I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. I'm still in shock, actually. I mean, I'm right up there ahead right now of books and authors that have inspired me in my journey. I mean, Dale Carnegie, Malcolm Gladwell, Seth Godin, Eric Ries, Napoleon Hill, Michael Gerber. It's just, oh my gosh, it's just crazy. And I'm so humbled and so thankful for it. And yes, I have the screenshots to prove it, since the rankings are probably going to change over time. But yeah, I can now say I'm a best-selling author, which is pretty crazy. Now, next on the list is New York Times best-selling author, but we'll hopefully be talking about that in a later podcast, probably way later, but we'll see. Now, if you want to check out my book, Let Go, on Kindle, and you haven't already, or on the Snippet app, either one, you can go to patflynn.me/letgo, just one word, and get it right there. So thank you again for your support and reviews. It's awesome, and thank you for letting me plug that one more time for you. Now, real quick, I just got back from Chicago. First time there. It was awesome, except it was a little cold and rainy and floody and sinkhole-y, apparently. I was there for an event called Internet Profits Live, PROPHETS, and I spoke at this event like I do a lot of the other ones, and this was the first time I didn't script the entire presentation, which I used to do, but my speaking coach told me not to do that. This was the first time I didn't script it, and I still felt comfortable and confident going into it. I was still nervous, and I think I'm always going to get nervous before I do a presentation, but I was confident, and that was key. And I think this is the 7th or 8th time I've spoken live in front of a crowd, and this time to about 250 to 300 people, I would guess. And I had an amazing time, and I'm still loving this speaking thing. Thanks to everyone who came out afterwards to the meetup that me and Jason Van Orden from Internet Business Mastery put together. About 55 people came out and joined us for pizza. We just chatted and networked up and talked and had some deep dish pizza. It was so much fun, and I can't wait to do it again in the next city that I end up visiting. Now, that said, I'm on a break now. I won't be speaking again until the fall, which is good, because it's going to give me time to prepare for my keynote presentation, my opening keynote presentation, my very first one at the Financial Blogger Conference in October. And more importantly, it'll also give April, my wife, a break, because she's been super mom this first part of the year, watching both kids while I'm out traveling and speaking, crazy 3.5-year-old and a 7-month-old. I mean, April is just amazing. So, all right, for today, getting right into the content, we have a solo show. It's going to be just me this time, and this is going to be a recreation of the presentation I did at Social Media Marketing World here in San Diego in April of 2013. As many of you know, technology and me, when it comes to presentations, they don't really get along very well. And although nothing happened during my presentation this time, apparently someone had unplugged the recording device to plug in their laptop during the presentation, so it wasn't recorded. But it got such a good response and reaction, I wanted to recreate it here for you today. It'll be almost the same as my presentation, except some of the material will be tailored just for you because you're listening to this podcast instead of the presentation in a large crowd. And I may interject with things that I did during the live presentation with the audience participation and things like that, to let you know sort of how they reacted to certain questions and scenarios. I was asked to speak about podcasting, So I created a meaty presentation called Podcasting for More Exposure, Leads, and Money. So I hope you enjoy this. Really interesting. Michael Stelzner from socialmediaexaminer.com. He did the keynote because he set up the whole conference. He during his keynote, he had talked so much about how podcasting is sort of the hottest thing in social media right now. And Mari Smith, who's a Facebook expert, retweeted that, and just it went viral. And so it really helped because it made my room a packed room because again, I'm talking about podcasting, and it's just really cool to see everybody so stoked and juiced about it. And I know a lot of people, after listening to my presentation and then the panel I did with Cliff Ravenscraft and Michael Stelzner after, again, about podcasting, everybody was just so excited about it. So I'm hoping that after you listen to this, if you don't have a podcast already, you may consider starting one. Or if you are already doing a podcast, some of the tips and tricks I'm going to give you are going to help you, get more exposure, get more leads, and get more customers. So again, I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for checking this out. Let's get right to it. During the second night of the event that I spoke at, Social Media Marketing World, we were all invited to go on a dessert and drink cruise on the boat called the Hornblower in the San Diego Bay. And it was really cool. We got to go on this really large boat and drink and network, and there was karaoke, and there was an upper deck so we could go out and look at the bay and, look at the stars and whatever. And when I was there, this woman came up to me, and she gives me this kind of weird stare, and I check on myself because I thought maybe there was something on me that there shouldn't have been. And she says, "Are you Pat Flynn?" And I said, yeah, I'm Pat Flynn. And I look at her name badge, and her name's Michelle, and I go, "You listen to the show, Michelle?" She's like, "Yeah, I've listened to every single episode. I just want to thank you so much. I really love your show." And I was like, "Thank you, Michelle. This is really cool." And I followed up with a question that I ask everybody who tells me that they listen to my podcast. And the question is, what do you remember from the show? What do you remember from the show? And I love that question because it's very general. So they really will tell me what they remember. I'm not sort of leading them in one direction or another. And so I asked this to Michelle. Michelle, what do you remember from the show? And she thinks for a little bit, and she goes, well, Pat, I remember that you were a big baby. And I'm like, what? And she's like, no. In one of your episodes, you just briefly mentioned that you were an 11-pound, 12-ounce baby when you were born, which is actually a true fact. And I actually did set a record at the hospital that day in Connecticut, which is where I was born. And I was like, oh, yeah, I did mention that. And then she followed up by saying, your poor mother. And I followed up by saying, yeah, all 410 of her. Now, what's interesting about this is not the physics and the geometry of that situation, but the fact that out of all the episodes she's listened to, and at this point, there was 61 total episodes, each ranging between 30 minutes and some over an hour long. Out of all that content, the thing that she remembered and she pulled out when I asked her this question, what do you remember, was the fact that I was an 11-pound, 12-ounce baby. It's really weird. Now, that's the type of fact that you would remember about a friend, or you would remember about a relative, but not somebody you've met for the first time. Yet here I was with Michelle, first time we meet, and she pulls out this fact. And as we started to converse a little bit more, the conversation went down a path that it usually goes down after I talk to people who have listened to my podcast. They say, Pat, I feel like I know you. I feel like I know you. So when you can get a fan or a customer, or subscriber or user or reader to say that, that is so powerful because people want to do business with people they know. And when someone says, I feel like I know you, that is huge. And that is the power of the podcast. The podcast is just has an amazing way to create a deep connection, probably the deepest connection you can make with people in any sort of medium, even deeper than I would say in person. I mean, when you think about it, it would be weird for me to kind of go up to your ear and talk directly into your ear. Yet, when someone listens to your podcast, they are putting your sound into their ears, like with their earphones or headphones. And it's 100% complete isolation. And yes, they may be doing something else, but they are 100% listening to you and your message. And so, unlike meeting in person, a podcast is fantastic because you can create this really deep relationship with people on a scalable level. To the people listening, it's a one-on-one relationship building sort of conversation. Yet for you, you're doing it with multiple people at the same time. Now, unlike a sort of one-on-one meeting, it's sort of like you were presenting in front of a large group, just like I was presenting in front of this group here at Social Media Marketing World. But even unlike that, you don't have to get people in the same room to be able to talk to a whole group of people at the same time. Think about a stadium full of people. That's essentially what you have when you have a podcast and you have tens of thousands of listeners. And you can have tens of thousands of listeners almost like they're all gathered in one spot, yet they're all around the world. And they've given you permission to send them your message and push your message to them whenever it becomes available because they've subscribed to your podcast. It's such an amazing thing. It's incredible. Now, this was a point during the presentation when I would step down from the stage and I walked to somebody in the front row and I kind of asked their name. And I can't remember exactly who I chose, but let's just say this person's name is John. So I say, John, do you read tweets? And this was a social media conference, so of course he was going to say yes. And so John says, why, of course, yes, I do. And I say, John, how long does it take you to read a tweet? And he says, well, about 5 seconds, I would say. And I reply to the room, okay, it takes us about 5 seconds to read a tweet. I would agree with that. And I go to the back of the room and I find somebody else. Again, I can't remember the exact person I pointed out or spoke to, but let's just say her name's Mary. So I go up to Mary and I go, Mary, do you read blog posts? And she says, why? Yes, I do. And I ask Mary, well, how long does it take you typically to read a blog post? And she responds, well, it depends on the number of words, but maybe between 3 to 10 minutes. Actually, in the conference, there was a woman I chose. She actually said 2 minutes, and I was like, wow, you read really fast. I wish I could read as fast as you. But let's just say somebody says, 3 to 10 minutes, depending on the length of the post. And I repeat that to the entire audience. And then I ask the entire audience to raise their hand and I say, okay, I want everybody in the room to raise their hand if they've listened to a podcast that's longer than 5 seconds. And pretty much 90 to 95% of the room raised their hand, which was already surprising and showed everybody just how many people listen to podcasts. So I said, keep your hand up. So that was for 5 seconds. And I say, how many of you listen to a podcast that's longer than 10 minutes? Nobody put their hand down. How many of you listen to a podcast longer than 20 minutes? Maybe 2 or 3 people put their hand down. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. And after I said an hour, I would say 10% of the people who had their hands up put their hands down. Everybody, mostly everybody, had kept their hand up. And I said, okay, thank you, put your hands down. And that, again, just showed everybody. And the point of this was that tweets are really tiny bits of messages. Blog posts, a little bit bigger, 10 minutes of your time. But there's people out there. They're in this room and out there in the world who are spending over an hour listening to you or listening to a particular brand or injecting another person and their message into their lives. There is no other medium that allows someone that kind of time to share a message with somebody. And I could hear the sort of wow in the room. It was so cool. After that, that was just enough proof for people to just fall in love with this medium and really get excited about it. And then I sort of take it back down and I say, well, there are 2 things you need to have in order to have a podcast that's going to do something for you. 1 is exposure, and 2 is having people take action from your podcast. Because remember, a podcast is something people listen to. They might not necessarily and are often not in front of a computer. Maybe they're in front of a smartphone, and there are strategies for that later that I'm going to talk about. But typically, if you say a link, they're not going to just think about it and go to that page because they're not in front of a computer typically. Google Glass hasn't been out yet, so we'll see what happens then. But so you need exposure for your podcast, and you need to get people to take action. So those are the 2 things that we're going to be talking about today. Now, when it comes to exposure, there's a cycle called the exposure cycle, which has 3 components. And this sort of stems from my Be Everywhere philosophy. And this is a cycle that generates growth in your podcast. And the first part of the cycle is called discoverability. How much of a chance are you giving your podcast to be found or discovered, not just through iTunes, but through other means too. And we'll talk about all those strategies to help your podcast get discovered in just a second. So after you're discovered, the second thing is you want people to stick around. So the second component is called stickability. We have discoverability and stickability. How much of a chance are you getting people to stick around, or are you giving them an opportunity to stick around, or giving them something to look forward to? Again, that's something else we're going to be talking about. And the third part, after you get people to discover you, after you get people to stick around, the third part is getting people to share you. And what happens when people share you? You're rediscovered by new people who would have never found you otherwise, or at least not then, and they get to go through that same cycle: stick around, share, discover, stick around, share, discover you, so on and so forth. So that's how we're going to map out the content in this presentation for getting more exposure. Now, the second part is how we're going to get people to take action. So these are call to action strategies. Specifically, how are we going to get people who listen to your show to share? How are we going to get them to click on a link? How are we going to get them to comment? How are we going to get them to subscribe? And lastly, how are we going to get them to buy? Okay, so now we're into a transition point in the presentation. This is kind of cool because I'm sort of giving you insider information about how the presentation is structured. And again, these are mostly tips I've gotten from my speaking coach. It's always good sort of between different sections of your presentation. Well, first of all, it's always good to break up your presentation into different sections. And then secondly, have transition moments in between each of those sections. What that does is sort of resets the audience, sort of gets them in tune for what's coming next. Maybe if they were distracted about something else, it sort of gets them back into focus. So what I did here, after I talked about everything that we're going to talk about and how the presentation is structured, I've already set the tone for what podcasting can do for you and why it's so important. Again, this is more of a strategy-filled presentation than a why you should do podcasting. I think the first part just already accomplished that. Here, I sort of validate myself as a podcaster and somebody who is on stage. It's always good to do that as well. Talk about a little bit about who you are and why you're qualified to talk about this information. You don't want to talk too much about yourself, but this is a good opportunity within a presentation to sort of, brag a little bit. And, again, you don't want to be cocky, but you want to be personable and you want to show people why they should be listening to you. So at this point, I talk about myself a little bit, and a lot of you already know who I am. The reason I did this again here is because a lot of people have never met me before here. I would say over half the audience didn't know who I was, which is okay, but now they know because I'm everywhere. So I have some slides, and again, I'll have the slide deck up for you hopefully soon, if not already. I'm going to put a YouTube video together with the slides here. I'm not doing that while I'm doing this recording for you because, again, this is just for the podcast, and I'm thinking about you, the listener. So I have some pictures up there. I talk about how I'm a marching band freak. A lot of you know that. I talk about how Back to the Future is my favorite episode, my favorite movie ever. And then I show some pictures of my kids just to show because, I'm obviously a huge family man. Again, this is a great way to connect with the audience and be personable. And then I talk about some qualifications like that deal with podcasting, for example, that actually was just a couple days before this presentation that my podcast had just passed 3 million downloads. I also talked about a little bit about how the podcast helped me get into Hollywood, how a Hollywood producer found me on iTunes and hired me for social media work, and then I got to be an extra in the movie. The New York Times featured me specifically because of what I've done with my podcast. And I also said it helped me get a speaking gig at Social Media Marketing World, which is kind of funny. Okay, and then I transition one more time before we get into the meat. I say, this isn't a sort of beginner's tutorial about how to podcast. This is sort of what to do when you already have a podcast. But if you are just starting out and you haven't had a podcast yet, in order to set one up, which isn't just the push of a button, but there's some steps involved, you can go to podcastingtutorial.com. That is a redirect that'll take you to a page on my site with a really detailed 6-video tutorial on how to set up your podcast. There's a lot of people. There's at least 100 people who have done this already and are now on iTunes, and it's totally free. No money required, no credit cards, no emails required. It's just right there, podcastingtutorial.com, so that will help you. I also give a hashtag during the presentation, which is cool too, and then I give a URL, actually, which is patislive.com. This is another strategy I'm doing right now in presentations that I picked up from, I don't even remember where I picked this up from, but it's pretty cool. So when you go to patislive.com, while you're at my presentation live, of course, you can go there now and sort of see where it's at, but I think it's set for whatever presentation I had just done whenever you're listening to this in the future. But that is a domain I got, patislive.com. It takes you to a Twitter page with a pre-populated tweet that has the hashtag for that convention or event, and also my Twitter handle and some message about, I'm watching Pat live right now. And that just, again, creates buzz about that particular presentation. It shows the people at the conference who are keeping track of the hashtags just how popular this particular presentation is and how well I am at getting people to take action. So hopefully I'll get an invite next year. Really cool things like that. And I share how to do that later in this presentation because, again, you're listening to the podcast right now, and this is a great way for you to take action even though you're listening. And that URL, again, is patislive.com. So we'll get into that. So first, let's talk about exposure. And again, it's broken down into 3 sections: discoverability, stickability, and shareability. Within discoverability, which is what we're going to talk about right now, there are 4 things we're going to talk about and discuss. First one is SEO, or search engine optimization. Secondly is artwork. Third is related shows. And fourth are rankings. Now, when it comes to SEO, a lot of people don't know or don't even think about this, but iTunes, which is where the podcasts are one of the directories where podcasts are housed, is a search engine, a major search engine. On your desktop in iTunes, at the upper right-hand corner, there's a big search bar out there, and that's what people use to look for stuff that they're looking for. On the mobile side of things, there's a podcast app by Apple, which when you go to, there's a big menu thing on the bottom that says search, and that's where you go to look for stuff. And if you can rank really high for different things that people are looking for there based on different keywords, you're going to be found. Stitcher is another directory, and that has an apparent search bar right at the top as well. So again, you want to make sure that you are optimized for search engine stuff, not for Google, but for iTunes. Now, it's similar to Google, but there are certain things you could do on your page, on your if you go to your podcast on iTunes, you have a page with artwork, with a title, with the host or author name, and then the description. There are certain things you could do within each of those to help you optimize for different keywords. So the first thing is the title of your show. Really important. The title of my show is not just the Smart Passive Income Podcast, which is, pretty good because it has the words passive income in there. And I did that on purpose when I created the name of my brand, because I knew that would help with search engine optimization a little bit. But the title of my podcast is this: the Smart Passive Income Podcast, online business, blogging, passive income, lifestyle. Each of those separated by one of those lines or tubes or whatever they're called. So the Smart Passive Income Podcast, online business. That's a keyword that I want to target. Blogging, that's another keyword I want to target. Passive income, that's another keyword I want to target. And lifestyle, another keyword that, again, are all relevant to my brand, but I put them here specifically in the title to show the search engine, iTunes, what my podcast is all about. The title has a lot of weight. Nobody knows the exact algorithm, but it does hold a lot of weight, and also just shows people what my show is about too. I mean, yes, there are ways to sort of even better become search engine optimized for your website or your podcast or your videos, but you still want to write for humans too. I think that's really important. So making sure that when you are doing SEO, that Google and all the other search engines, they're trying to be as much like people as possible. So you want to write for people too. So that's the title. Second thing is your host name. A lot of people just put their name or the name of their blog, and that's fine, but there's another opportunity for you. So my host name, for example, on iTunes is Pat Flynn, online entrepreneur, business strategist, and blogger. Again, it tells people more about who I am, but it also tells iTunes more about who I am. So, of course, they're going to rank me for those terms more than other people if they don't have those terms in there. Thirdly is the description. Now, I'm not going to read my description here for you, but there are certain keywords that I've put in the description, such as online business, blogging, marketing, passive income, affiliate marketing, niche sites, social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, podcasting, ebooks, so on and so forth. Those are all words that are in my description, but I don't just list them out like that. Again, you want to still write for people. And the description is something that people are going to read before they even listen to your show. So you want to make sure it makes sense to them, but you want to include those keywords for search engine purposes as well. Now, a lot of you might know about those three things because they're plainly obvious for search engine optimization in iTunes, but there's a fourth thing that you need to pay attention to, and that's your episode metadata, or the information that goes along with each of your episodes, not just your overall show, but each of the episodes that you have. So the title of your actual episode, or for me, I call them sessions, is really important too. So when you're coming up with your title, it's cool to be creative, but it's also useful to have some search engine optimizations, in the back of your head when selecting different keywords for those particular shows. That's a great way for people to rank for different people who they interview. I know a lot of people who rank really high for people they've interviewed because they specifically mention their name on the show. Now that's plainly obvious, but if you're doing solo shows, it might not be quite as obvious to choose certain keywords. Now, if you do go to iTunes right now and you search for the word blogging, you will find my podcast at number 1, which is pretty cool. If you go and search for online business, my podcast, the Smart Passive Income Podcast, is number 1, which is pretty cool. Now, if you search affiliate marketing, you'll see in the list of podcasts and the results that I'm not there at all. But if you go, it shows a list of podcasts, about 5 of them. There's Affiliate Marketing Podcast, Affiliate Marketing Today, and a couple of other ones. Now, I'm not there, but right below that, in podcast episodes, it shows just the podcasts, the title of the podcast, and then below it shows specific episodes where affiliate marketing might be relevant. And the first 5 I can see are all my episodes because I have a number of different episodes where I talk specifically about affiliate marketing, and I've done a good job with my episode metadata, the title of those shows and the descriptions in those shows, to have the word affiliate marketing in it. So if you type in affiliate marketing, again, my podcast doesn't show up, but my podcast episodes do. Number 41, number 3, number 30, and number 22. I don't know why it's in that order specifically. Actually, I can tell right now that it's in order of popularity. So I'm guessing 41 is affiliate marketing the smart way, which was a repurpose of another presentation I did at New Media Expo, which is kind of interesting. So maybe this one will get picked up for podcasting. I don't know. We'll see. But obviously, podcasting is going to be in the title of this episode you're listening to right now. Now, a cool byproduct of having an iTunes page is that actual iTunes page. iTunes makes sort of a preview page that gets ranked really high in Google. So if you look up social media podcast, for example, in Google, the third result down is an iTunes preview page, which sort of looks like the page in iTunes, but it's just on the web, and it has the same title, the same host name, the same metadata for your episodes, and the same description, the same logo, everything. And again, this gives you another opportunity to be found with search engine optimization if you optimize your page in iTunes. The iTunes preview page will be optimized for you, and because it's on iTunes, on Apple's website, it'll rank really high. Okay, next thing we want to talk about artwork. Artwork is really important because when people go to iTunes, either on their phone or on their desktop, before they even listen to a show, before they even click to read the description, they look at one thing. They see the artwork. And so it's really important to have artwork that stands out and looks really good and is legible. And you have to remember that people aren't just on their desktops. A lot of people are on their phones. So your logo has to look good at a really small font as well. I mean, the default logo size is 1400 by 1400. That's the one that they want uploaded to their page because it looks good in all the devices. But if it looks good at 1400 by 1400 and you don't optimize it for the small size, it's going to look really bad and illegible on a small phone. And so you want to make sure it looks good at when it's really big, and also it looks good when it's really small. And it's also really important to have good artwork because Apple likes things that look good, and they like things that look good in their products too. So you'll have a way better chance of getting in new and noteworthy, which is sort of the holy grail of when you first launch your podcast. The way to get immediate exposure is to get into new and noteworthy. And if you have really good artwork, or even just decent artwork, but I would go for really good artwork, you're going to have a great chance of getting in the new and noteworthy section. Everyone I know who has spent a little bit of time on their artwork, who has set up a podcast recently, has been in the new and noteworthy section for their specific category. And again, there's huge opportunity here. I mean, Cliff Ravenscraft had a podcasting session at Social Media Marketing World also, and he dropped in some really amazing numbers. For instance, there are 420 million active blogs in the US alone, and there's only 250,000 podcasts. There is still a ton of room, and so now is the time to do it. So I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning of the show, but in case you weren't convinced, maybe that would have convinced you. And during the episode, or excuse me, during the presentation, I show an example of what not to do, and there's a couple where I show a preview page for a particular podcast. I'm not even going to mention it, but it has no artwork. It just has a really short name and then the name of the host. The description says funny and informative medical show, period. That's it. And then the name of each of the episodes is just the date. That's it. It doesn't tell me anything about what it's about. So don't do that. A good one to look at is This Is Your Life by Michael Hyatt. I would definitely check that out. And again, it's not as SEO optimized as I would make it, but Michael has a huge brand already, so he probably didn't need to do that. But the reason I bring this particular podcast up is if you look at this one on your desktop, and again, the name of this is This Is Your Life, and this is by Michael Hyatt, who I highly respect. There is a tab on there, and this is on your phone too. There's one that says Details, which shows the name of all your episodes. There's another tab that says Rating and Reviews, which we'll get to in a second. And then there's a final tab that says Related. If you click on that, you'll see shows that listeners have also subscribed to. So people who have listened to This Is Your Life, it also lists the other shows that those same people have listened to. So on Michael Hyatt's show, I see other people have listened to Dave Ramsey, Eric Fisher from Beyond the To-Do List, Copy Blogger Radio, and the Smart Passive Income blog, which is pretty cool. Now, there's two ways to make this happen. You can if you go to Mobile Mixed podcast, which is done by Greg Hickman, who we're going to have on the show next week. He has some really amazing strategies and really important points when it comes to mobile, which you have to listen to if you're doing anything online. So look out for that next week. But he has a podcast as well. And if you go to his Related tab on the phone or on the desktop, I'm right there, number one, as the Related show. Why? Because I was on his show as a guest. So a lot of his audience probably subscribed to my show after listening to me, and that's how I became sort of the top sort of related person. And so that's one strategy. Get other podcasters to mention you. You know, get mentioned by other podcasters. So that's sort of a them to you type of strategy. But there's another way to do this. So if you actually go to mine, if you go to the Smart Passive Income podcast and click on Related, and again, the results will change, but they're right there under Related. The number one spot is Amy Porterfield's show, Online Marketing Made Easy. Now, I've never mentioned Amy on my show, but she has mentioned me, and she has told her subscribers and her listeners to follow me. And because of that, now she is right here under my show. So that's a good strategy you can do too. Encourage your listeners to subscribe to other podcasts, preferably popular ones where you know people are going to be searching for what other things people listen to. So that's something that Amy did. She probably wasn't doing this intentionally, but she had mentioned my name a few times on her podcast, which got people, and she has a huge following, she got her people to subscribe to me. And as a result, she's now the top related podcast to me, at least at the moment of when I created this podcast session. So that's pretty cool. Now, number 4, the rankings. The rankings are a great way. If you can get any sort of exposure or any sort of top rankings in iTunes in different categories, that's a great way to get exposure because people want to listen to what's popular. And what's really cool is at the time of this presentation, I was number 4. So I got to show people right here, this is the top listed business podcasts, overall business. Number 1 was Dave Ramsey. Number 2 was Dave Ramsey. Number 3 was American Public Media. Number 4 was my podcast. And then it was cool because I was like, number 5 is Wall Street Journal. Then we got Harvard Business Review at number 7, Jim Cramer from Mad Money at number 11, Susie Orman at number 15, and just shows you, I mean, I'm just a regular dude, right? But I'm sitting here number 4 ahead of Wall Street Journal, ahead of Zig Ziglar and Jim Cramer and Susie Orman, all these big names. So podcasting is a great way to get some exposure because you're able to compete and almost do better than a lot of these big name brands. But anyway, the rankings work like this. They are determined by the number of downloads, the number of new subscribers to your show, and the number of ratings and reviews within a certain time period. That's pretty vague, but so is iTunes. So I can't really tell you more than that. But the more downloads you have, the more new subscribers you have, and the more ratings and reviews you have, the better your rankings will be, or the higher your rankings will be. So it's really, when you're launching a podcast, the best thing to do is make a huge deal out of it. Try to get other sites and other podcasts to get people to download and listen and subscribe to you, and also asking people to leave ratings and reviews, and try to get that all done as quickly as possible, right when you're launching out, or whenever you come out with a new episode too. Make a big deal out about getting ratings and reviews and people subscribing, because again, that's going to push you high in the rankings. And once you get to a certain point, once you're right there or above the fold, as they say, you're exposed, and people will find you. And if you have a good logo, people are going to find you even more. So that's why again, artwork is really important. So again, just to recap discoverability really quick, that's search engine optimization, your artwork, related shows, and rankings. Okay, next, again, we're still talking about exposure. We're going to talk about the second part of it. After you're discovered, you want people to stick around. So we're going to talk about stickability. It's a few things that you want to think about when it comes to stickability. The first thing is having a good first impression. You want to have great sound quality, and I didn't do this during the presentation, but I should have. I should have asked people, well, what is it? What would make you turn a show off within the first minute after listening to it? And there's a few things I know people would say. The first one is bad sound quality. You can have the best content in the world. If the sound quality is terrible, people are going to turn you off. So that's why I've invested in some really high quality microphones and equipment to just sound, have really good sound quality, because I know that plays a huge role. And you want to give yourself as much of an edge as possible over your competition, and just, with your audience too. So again, if you go to podcastingtutorial.com, the first video is going to go over all the different mics that I have used and the different quality of mics, and, how much they cost and stuff. So great sound quality is really important. Also, what turns people off is too much fluff, or too much just random ramblings at the beginning, where people don't even know what the episode's about. People are just talking about what they're going to have for breakfast, or random things like that for like 10 minutes. I mean, you want to get people captivated and interested in what you're going to be talking about right away. You want to be compelling, and so just irrelevant information right at the beginning is not going to do you any good. I would say, they say for a website you have like 7 seconds, or probably less than that now, but you have about 7 seconds to get any new visitor to your website to understand that that's where they should be, or else they're going to leave. With a podcast, maybe you have, I would say, 30 seconds to a minute, a little bit longer, because people are listening to you, and they've chosen to listen to you, which is a lot, which takes a little bit more of a commitment than just going to a website. But still, you need to give people relevant information right away and no fluff. And I think a lot of people would also say that, if there's no personality in the show. So you want to put a little bit of personality behind it too. You want to make it entertaining. As much as we're doing this to provide content, we want to do it to be entertaining too, because again, people are listening to us potentially, depending on the length of your show, for over an hour. So you want it to be entertaining. You want to have it be full of relevant information that's actually going to be helpful. So hopefully, if you've stuck around during the third, so far, you feel that way. So, okay. So stepping off of that, valuable content is the next part of stickability. And there's an acronym, WIIFT. That's really important to understand. WIIFT, WIFT, which stands for what's in it for them. So as much as the show is about you and your brand, you really want to make sure that it's directed toward your audience, and it's always for them. So I know, for example, that in this episode, my goal is to help you do a few things. One, understand that podcasting is really important. It's done so much for my business, and I've hopefully proven why. Number 2, I want to show you how to get more exposure. And number 3, I want to show you how to get more leads into into your email list and also into your customer base from your podcast. You also want to make people feel special, like what they're getting is special on your podcast. And this is where people come in and ask, well, can't I just record a video and take the audio from the video and put that in a podcast and transcribe that and put that on my blog? Yes, you can do that. But I feel like a podcast should have specific, special, unique information for your audience because, again, people are devoting a lot of time to listen to you. It's only right that you give them something that is just for them on the podcast. I mean, when you take audio from video, a lot of times there are pieces of audio that are just good for that video when you're watching it, but when you just listen to it without the video, it's not going to make complete sense. And you want to give your listeners a good experience when listening to you. You also want to give people actionable content. You want to do something where you can get people to come out of the show and actually do something and prove that what you have told them actually works. And, a lot of actionable small tips, big tips, all that stuff works really well. So giving people instant results is a great way to get people in tune with your brand and wanting more and able to stick around. All right, next, still talking about stickability here, getting people to stick around. Social proof is huge. So sometimes you'll hear me on the show, and you've maybe heard me say this before. I talk about how many ratings I've had, or sometimes I'll read specific reviews. I don't do that quite as often as a lot of other people do. Maybe I should, but reading reviews that people have left for your show is really important because it shows a lot of other people, maybe people who have listened or just listening for the first time, that it is a show that you have a show worth listening to. Now, I don't know if you'd want to read a 1-star review unless you're going to respond to that, but you want to show off the good stuff. And also, I can say, for example, right now I have, I think I have 785 5-star ratings in iTunes, which is pretty cool. Secondly, you want to get people involved. You want to you want to name certain people in your audience. You want to get people on your show, perhaps leaving a voicemail and a question, and you can answer them, or actually getting people on your show to converse and talk about a specific problem. Not just interviews, but just whatever. And what that does is it shows everybody else that you are a real person, that you care, that you have the knack to sort of be there and respond to people. Now, yes, you maybe only be responding or being involved with one person at a time, but even so, everybody else is watching that happen, and that can go a really long way. And it might get people excited because you might get them involved later in the future too. Thirdly, when it comes to social proof, you can talk about achievements with your podcast too. And I talk about, for example, how I just passed 3 million downloads. I mean, people aren't going to listen to something that's not good 3 million times. For example, you want to talk about those types of achievements. The fact that I was nominated for a podcast award these past 2 years is another sort of example of that. So think about different achievements that you've had in your podcast that you could share with your audience. And again, it doesn't take that long, and you're okay to do that. You have permission to do that. Now, the last part of stickability is keeping your audience engaged during the show. Again, we're asking a lot of our audience. We're asking them to spend sometimes over an hour with us. And there are certain things you could do during your show to make sure people listen all the way through, or get them back in tune with you during the show, maybe if you've potentially lost them. So the first one is probably the most important. It's the easiest strategy, but all you have to do is pause. See what it did there? So if you're about to say something important, sometimes just like a 1 or 2 second pause can change everything. So it's going to get people who have just listened to you talk for a while be like, whoa, what's he about to say? And so that's a really good strategy. That's another tip that I picked up from my public speaking coach. Another one that you could use, this is the second tip, a great way to emphasize something that's really important is to repeat yourself. So a great way to emphasize something really important is to repeat yourself. That's sort of a signal for your audience, for someone listening to you, that something you just said was really important. And the fact that you're saying it again means that you really should remember what I'm about to say. So again, just repeating yourself every once in a while. And again, if you just pause too much and you repeat yourself all the time, obviously it's going to be terrible audio and it's just going to be really annoying. So you want to be smart with it, but just play around with that, practice, pause, repeat yourself. Another great thing to do with podcasting that you can't do with a lot of other mediums, especially text, is you can use dynamics. You can raise your voice to get people's attention, and you can also soften your voice. And what this does, it allows you to give a little bit more emotion to what you're saying. I mean, imagine a piece of music, classical music, for example. You listen to any good classical music, it's going to have really loud moments. It's going to have really soft moments. If it was just one dynamic, one volume the whole time, it's going to sound terrible. I mean, I remember back in music class, that was the biggest thing that helped us get higher scores in marching band, was having dynamics in our show. Really, really loud moments and having really, really soft moments. And there was a podcast episode I listened to on Social Triggers Insider, which is Derek Halpern's show, a while back. I think it was Sally Hogshead who was on the show, and she was talking about Marilyn Monroe, who was really good at doing interviews, and how whenever she did interviews back in the day, she always just got the audience to just be so mesmerized and almost hypnotized by what she was saying. And it was because she would sort of whisper, like it was almost like you were in like sitting next to her and like having a really intimate moment with her, sort of like this. And I hope this isn't creeping you out, but she would do something like that. I mean, I apologize if that creeped you out, but she would do that. I mean, if you listen to any sort of interview that she's had in the past, I'm sure there you can find them on YouTube. She kind of lowers her voice, and that was done on purpose because she knows that just gets people in tune with her, and that was her style, obviously. But you can use dynamics and speak louder and speak softer during your podcast to get people sort of back into what you're talking about, and also get them emotionally involved with what you're saying. Another thing we talked about this a little bit, was transitions. In between different sections, you want to break it up a little bit and maybe lead into the next session with another story, and also talking about what's coming up later. So at the beginning of this episode, I talked about how I'm going to show you how I created that whole patislive.com deal, where it goes to a pre-populated tweet page where you can just click tweet. It's already done for you. Little things like that are really good. Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner, he has a podcast that does really well. He does that really well. At the beginning of each of his episodes, he talks about a really cool tool or a strategy that he's going to talk about, but you have to wait to the end to get it. And of course, the rest of his content is great, but I'm there sitting, waiting, and listening to the rest of the show so I can get that final tip or that tool. And again, that's a really good tip. All right, so moving on, last part of exposure for your podcast. Again, we talked about discoverability. We talked about stickability. Now we're going to talk about shareability. Just really quick, there's few easy things you could do to get people to share your podcast with others. The first thing is, obviously, you just want to create something worth sharing. People share because it makes them look better. I mean, if you really think about why people share, and Jonah Berger talked about this in one of the previous episodes, who wrote the book Contagious. People it's like social brownie points. The more cool stuff you could share, the cooler you're going to look. And if you can provide something worth sharing, people are going to want to share that with their friends and followers, where they might benefit from that. The second thing is, you want to make it incredibly easy to share. And again, I'm going to show you how to do that in the next section when we talk about getting your audience to take action. But you want to make it really easy to share and really easy to remember how to share, because people aren't going to be in front of their computers. And also, you have permission to ask. And that's probably the best tip when it comes to sharing. Ask people to share. If people have listened to you for an hour, or even 30 minutes, or even 20 minutes, it doesn't matter how long your show is. If they've listened to you all the way through, they are connected with you, and that is a perfect time to get them to take action. One of those actions being to share. And if you talk about how important it is and how much it's going to help, people are more than likely going to do it. So let's move on to the second part of this presentation, how to get your listeners to take action. We've talked about how to get discovered, but on your show, you want people to take action, because if they don't do that, then you might as well not have a podcast, right? I mean, it's good to provide this information, but we also want people to take action. Again, we want people to share. We want people to click on stuff. We want people to comment. We want people to eventually, if you're running a business, you want people to buy stuff. How can they buy stuff through your podcast? Well, let's talk about it really quick. Now, I'm going to share with you that tip on, since we just talked about sharing. This is something that I learned from Michael Stelzner, actually, now that I remember, from Social Media Examiner. He has a podcast called Social Media Marketing. And at the end of his show, he says these words. He says, if you've enjoyed the show, you can let us know that you enjoyed it by going to socialmediamarketing.com/love. socialmediamarketing.com/love. And if you go there, it goes to a Twitter page, an already pre-populated tweet. It says, I love the Social Media Marketing Podcast with Michael Stelzner. Check it out. And then there's a link. Tell your friends. And that link goes to the podcast. Super smart. And so what happens is when somebody clicks tweet, again, they don't have to do any work except click tweet. They're sharing that tweet and the link to that podcast. And also it sort of tags Michael Stelzner. Just amazing things happen. And I think Michael, I don't remember the exact number, but Michael told us that hundreds of people have used this. And again, that just took 1 or 2 seconds to mention during the show. So how do you do this? The first thing you want to do is go to bit.ly, bit.ly. That's a website where you can go to shorten a really long link. So you take your iTunes link for your podcast, or maybe the podcast page on your website, put that into bit.ly. It shortens it into something like bit.ly/ and some random letters, and you can customize that if you wish. So let's just say, for example, it's bit.ly/SPI, for example. And then you take that link, you just copy it or save it for the next step. You go to click2tweet.com, click-to-tweet.com. And what you do there is that's where you fill out whatever's going to be pre-populated. So that's where you say, I love Social Media Marketing Podcast, or I love Smart Passive Income Podcast with @PatFlynn. Click here to get it, and then put in that bit.ly link, SPI, or bit.ly/SPI. So first step is get your link at bit.ly to your show. Put that link in a click to tweet. There's a field there to fill out that pre-populated tweet, and make sure you tag yourself in it so you can see and keep track of it, and put that link in there so people will click somewhere when they share it with their followers and friends. And then you click generate link, and that gives you a click-to-tweet.com/random letters link. Now that link, when people go through that link, it goes to that pre-populated Twitter page. But if you want to make it fancy and go, have it be branded to your particular domain name, you put that click-to-tweet link in Pretty Link. Pretty Link is a WordPress plugin. You can download it off of the WordPress repository, free plugin directory. It's called Pretty Link. There are 2 versions. There's a light version and a pro version. All you need is the light version. And what you do is you put in your target URL, which is going to be our click-to-tweet.com/whatever, the one that we just generated from click-to-tweet.com. And then you could set whatever that domain is going to be after your home domain or your root domain. So I could, just like Michael had it, he had socialmediaexaminer.com/love. And it could be whatever you want. It could be /hate or /awesome or whatever. Just it can't be something that you already have on your website. So /love. So that's how you do that. And so I recommend you try that. That's how I did Pat is Live. I just used the same thing. I didn't use a bit.ly there, but I did a click to tweet. And then instead of doing a pretty link, I actually bought a domain, Pat is Live, and I had it forward to that click to tweet link that I generated. And again, I changed that wherever I go speak so that when people put that in, they're sharing that they're watching me live. And it just, again, builds buzz for that presentation. Okay, next part, how to get people to take action. You need quality show notes. Now, I love the show notes at Michael Hyatt's site. If you go to Michael Hyatt's site, you can just click on the podcast category at the top and see his show notes. And he has a number of great elements that you should have. The most important thing to realize is that the show notes are really useful to those listening. Because again, typically they're not in front of computers, and it's a great way for them to know that all the links, everything you mentioned in there, all the items and everything that's in that particular podcast session are right there. So if they're not able to take notes, it's all right there. And so you want to, again, press that on your audience that this is for them. It's convenient for them. Again, what's in it for them? You don't have to take notes. Everything that we talked about is right there. So that's going to help them get back to your website. And again, your website is your home. That's where where all the action happens. That's where you sell stuff. Okay, so going down Michael Hyatt's page, and I showed this example during the presentation, he has the title of his podcast, which is optimized for SEO really, really well. He has the intro, which talks a little bit about what that particular session's about, and then he goes down and talks about the most important points in that particular episode. And this one that I use as an example, the title of of his podcast is make your email messages more effective and professional. And halfway down the page, he lists, I think, like 19 different suggestions. He just lists them out. Again, this is a helpful sort of bullet point list that is sort of consolidated based on what he had mentioned in his show. So it's really convenient for his audience. Then he has listener questions, so that's where he gets his audiences involved. He actually lists the questions and links out to his audience if they have websites, and he answers those questions within the episode. Then he has special announcements of like where he's going to be, maybe things he's potentially selling. Then he has this episode of resources, the links and resources and tools and services and items and other websites mentioned in that episode. Those are all listed out and linked to right there. And then, like I do, he has a show transcript, and I don't know if he has it when the episode comes out or has it later, but again, that's really helpful for people who aren't really going to be listening to podcasts or don't have the time to, or would much rather read. Maybe they just feel like reading this time, or maybe, there's a big section of my audience that I know are hearing impaired, and I just feel bad not having a transcript for them. Now, there's something that's really cool, which Amy Porterfield does. You can check out her site at amyporterfield.com. And this is like the first time I'm mentioning her, which I apologize because I just love Amy Porterfield. She's got some amazing stuff. So check out Amy at amyporterfield.com. She didn't pay me to say that, or I don't even think she knows I just said that. But she gets people to go to her show notes in a really great way, similar to what I do. A lot of you who have listened to my show before know that I say, well, if it's episode 64, then my show notes are at smartpassiveincome.com/session64. Well, Amy takes it one more step. She says, for example, this is episode 6, so you can grab the show notes at amyporterfield.com/6. I'll include all the links that we talked about in this interview, plus some valuable resources, etc. So she just makes it really easy. It's just amyporterfield.com/6. Now, how does she do that? She uses that same link that I talked about, or that same tool plugin that I talked about earlier called Pretty Link. Again, you can just make it just a number if you want. So that's really cool. And again, she says after it's amyporterfield.com/6, I'll include all the notes and links that we talked about in this interview, plus some valuable resources. Again, just another way to get people to make sure that they go there. Okay, so beyond show notes, let's talk about landing pages. This isn't people coming to your notes. This is people going to different pages on your site to do different things. And one example I want to give you is from Internet Business Mastery. They have a great landing page. During their episodes, they say something like, head on over to freeaudiogift.com to get more inspiring, actionable content, so on and so forth. So if you go to freeaudiogift.com, this doesn't go to the show notes, but it goes to sort of a squeeze page. And what that means is there's one thing to do on that page. It sort of just forces you to do that because there's nothing else to do. There's no way to click out. It's just a headline, some information, and then an opt-in box for their email list. It says, register now, free. And what's interesting that they do on this site, on this particular page, freeaudiogift.com. And again, that just redirects to a page on their homepage, or excuse me, it just redirects to a page that they have on their regular site, is they have audio on the site too. And that's interesting. And I'm wondering if they're testing that or not. But it's interesting because, when you think about it, people are getting that URL from the podcast. So if they go here and they listen to them, it's sort of a continuation on what they just heard on the podcast. So again, that's really smart, I think, at least something to test, especially if you're doing it from a podcast. Now, a lot of you know that I do something similar with a lot of different things that I have on my website. For example, if you want to get my ebook, you can go to ebooksthesmartway.com. Again, these are domains that I've purchased where I just forward to a specific place on my website. Again, just a landing page. On that page, that's where you can sign up for my email list to then get my ebook. I also have keywordresearchwebinar.com, where you see a free 2-hour webinar about how to do keyword research. And that's really helpful for people. And it's also helpful for me because it also promotes a keyword research tool that I am an affiliate for. There's also nichesiteduel.com. That takes you to a landing page with a list of all the posts within the Niche Site Duel, where I took a site to #1 in Google in 73 days and started making a few $1,000s from it. All those posts are listed there. I also have startanemaillist.com, which takes you to my how to start a newsletter post, which is really popular and a lot of people have benefited from. I also have patsfirstbook.com, which redirects you to my private Facebook group, and that's where I talk about my experience writing my first book, which is really helpful. There's a few thousand people in there. I also have thankYouPat.com, and that's a place where people can go to fill out a form to just leave me a quick thank you that I can publish then somewhere else. So those are all things that I've had that purchased domains where I have forwarding to a landing page. Now I also had patonfacebook.com, but don't use Facebook in a domain name. I had used that to redirect people to my Facebook page. I got a nice cease and desist letter from Facebook to stop doing that, so I'm not doing that anymore. So don't use Pat on Facebook or your name on Facebook. Not going to work. All right, and one of the last things I want to talk about is how important mobile is for your podcast. And it's just mobile is so important now. We don't even know how important it is. I mean, I challenge you to go into your analytics right now and see exactly how many people are using or viewing your website on mobile. So, if you're getting people to go to your website from your podcast, more likely than not, they're going to be coming on a smartphone or an iPad. And so there's a couple websites I want you to check out if you can, because you should think about getting your site mobile designed or have a responsive design, meaning no matter what device they're on, it looks good. And Greg and I are going to get into that in the next episode, in episode number 65, and some really important things about that. But a couple sites I want you to check out. If you go to thinktraffic.net on your mobile phone or iPad, it's going to look really slick and really good. Again, if you just switch it from vertical to landscape on your iPhone, it's gonna switch for you, and it'll be fine-tuned just for exactly the screen that you have. Mobilemixed.com, which is Greg Hickman's site too, is also very, very mobile-friendly. And Greg is actually our guest, like I said, on the next show, and he gives us a ton of tips to help us with our websites and our podcasts and getting things ready for mobile, because I challenge you actually to go to your Google Analytics or Clicky or whatever you're using to keep track of your traffic and see exactly how many people are using mobile devices to check out your site. You're going to be really surprised. I was surprised, and we go over that all in the next episode. So I'm going to save those tips that I actually put. I put some of those tips at the end of this presentation during Social Media Marketing World, but I encourage you to listen to the next episode 65 with Greg Hickman from mobilemixed.com. It's really great and also just very important information, because if you're not mobile optimized, you're leaving leads, subscribers, and potentially customers on the table. So I'll save that for next week. I want to talk about really quick everything we just covered, just to kind of recap again. We talked about getting exposure for your podcast. We talked about discoverability, talking about SEO, artwork, related podcasts, and also rankings in iTunes. We also talked about stickability, so things like first impressions, delivering high-value content, of course, and also specific things you can do during your show to get people to keep on listening, like pausing and repeating yourself and things like that. And also shareability, getting people to just share your stuff. And of course, if it's that good, people are going to share it anyway, but you want to get people to share your stuff. Sometimes all you need to do is ask. And that goes along with the second part of this presentation that we talked about, was getting people to take action, the call to action strategies, how to get people to share stuff, to click, comment, subscribe, and buy. And of course, you gotta just ask. I think that's the biggest tip, is just ask people. If they've listened to you for a certain amount of time, you have permission to ask them to do stuff. They are hot or they are warm or whatever you want to call it. That's the perfect time to do that. And so just ask, and also just make it incredibly easy, and getting people back to your show notes and making it easy to do that, getting people onto specific landing pages if there's certain important pages within your site that you want them to go to. So your call to action, you, the listener, I have a few call to actions for you right now. The first call to action is, if you don't have a podcast up and running already and you're really excited about starting one, go on over to podcastingtutorial.com. Podcastingtutorial.com. That'll give you those free videos and the free tutorial about how to just start. Just everything you need to know, from the microphones to how the feeds work and how to get your show up. Hundreds of people have used that already. The second call to action is if you still need help, please feel free to email me, pat@smartpassiveincome.com. I'm bullish on podcasting right now. I really believe in the medium as a way to deliver a message, and I feel like if I can help you, I'm helping everybody that you're going to help too. So please email me, pat@smartpassiveincome.com, if you have any questions. Also, check out Cliff Ravenscraft and everything he has to offer in regards to podcasting at podcastanswerman.com. And the last thing I want you to do is just remember the purpose of podcasting. Yes, it's fun. It's so fun. I mean, I've grown so much as a person just from starting my podcast. I mean, I would never have been able to be comfortable behind a microphone before I started my podcast. This has helped me with communication with my family. It's helped me with communication and getting gigs for public speaking, stuff that I never would have dreamed of doing. And I just feel like I'm such a better person because of it. And it's a great way to just step out of your comfort zone a little bit and do something amazing. I mean, every time I've been faced with an uncomfortable situation in my business, I see it as an opportunity for something great to happen. If it wasn't uncomfortable, then it's probably something that's not going to be worth my time. I mean, it happened with my podcast. I can't even, those first episodes are terrible, but I did them and I've improved. I've got better. That's really what it's all about. Just practice and keep going. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect right from the get-go. If you try to be perfect, you're never going to get it out there. Work on perfecting things along the way. People who are following you along the way are going to appreciate that. The same thing happened with my YouTube videos. I was definitely afraid of putting my face behind videos or even just shooting videos and posting them for the world to see on YouTube. But you know what? I did it. I practiced and I got better over time. And now I can shoot a video in 5 minutes and have it out there and it'll be very valuable. I wouldn't have been able to do that before. So again, just practice and putting yourself in the deep end and doing it. And now I'm doing it with public speaking, and it was totally uncomfortable. It's the number one fear in the world, second to death, and I was in that statistic too. I totally feared public speaking, but podcasting helped me, and also just doing it. And because it was uncomfortable, I knew it was going to help my business, and it has. So remember, though, even though it's all good for you, the purpose of the podcast is for you and for your audience, so that you can build a better relationship with them, so you could better serve them. That's really what all this business stuff is all about, serving your audience. And I feel like podcasting is the best medium to do that because you're able to better connect and share your message with them. And if you have a message worth sharing, I recommend you share it with your voice. So I hope you appreciated that. Again, it was a little different than the actual live presentation that happened at Social Media Marketing World earlier this month in April 2013. But, some interesting tidbits about presenting in general. And I will hopefully get the slides up for you later or a YouTube video or something. I'll embed it in the show notes at smartpassiveincome.com/session64. Again, that's an exact tip that I gave you in the show about how to get people to your show notes. Just thank you so much for listening. Again, if you have any questions, pat@smartpassiveincome.com. And the only call to action and link I'm going to give you right now is go to podcastingtutorial.com and also leave a rating and review. That's it. I appreciate you guys so much. I had a lot of fun presenting to you, even though it's a little different since it's on a podcast. It's probably better that the audio didn't record, that the audio and the video didn't record, because this was actually a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I'll see you with Greg Hickman in episode 65, and I'll chat with you later. Have a good week. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score App's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI. Hey there, quick pause here because I have to tell you about a tool that completely transforms the podcasting workflow, Riverside. I get it. I used to juggle multiple platforms just to record one podcast episode. It was exhausting. Zoom for recording, Audacity for editing, and then a bunch of different apps just to create clips and social posts. I've tried other ones as well. They were okay, but they were clunky and super time-consuming. That's where Riverside has massively helped. I can do it all in one place, recording, editing, repurposing, one platform, one streamlined flow. I just log in, record with my guests no matter where they are in the world, and just like that, studio-quality audio and high-resolution video all in one. And get this, even if your Wi-Fi glitches, Riverside records locally on your device so everything sounds and looks crystal clear. But here's my favorite feature, Riverside's AI editing tool. You can remove silences and filler words with just one click, hours saved. With Magic Clips, Riverside also automatically finds the best moments and turns them into ready-to-post videos for YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, all without the extra editing. So if you're looking to level up your production quality and simplify your workflow, go to smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside and use code SMART to get 1 month free on the Pro plan. That's smartpassiveincome.com/Riverside, promo code SMART. It's built by creators for creators, and I think you're going to love it.